Nina Sossamon is a public speaker, a keynote speaker, an author, a podcaster, and of course, an Emmy-Award winning television news anchor and a former tech executive. I talk one-on-one with Nina about what she's working on right now for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Nina Sossamon, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, hello, Quintin. It's been a while. You look fantastic.
Oh, thank you greatly. So do you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know obviously we saw each other on Tuesday.
So strange.
Yeah, I was in Park Circle doing some marketing work for Church and Union and dropping off 10% off cards to the businesses. And of course, you were there.
I was getting my nails done. I just happened to be getting my nails done. I was like, wait, that's Quintin. Hi.
Just working, trying to promote the restaurant. But I know, oh yeah. But I know that obviously you're busy because you are a keynote speaker, a public speaker, an athlete, of course, an Emmy-Award winning television news anchor, a tech executive, and an author. And I know that, as you always say, you're living life through chapters. So what chapter are you on right now in your life?
I am on a chapter that I'm loving. My kids are all grown and adulting now, so I've got time to decide exactly what I want to be. And I call this my chapter of being instead of doing, but I'm being a keynote speaker. I'm sharing this message of resilience. I'm doing a lot of research, but I'm full-time speaking and doing motivational speaking and presentations and workshops and traveling. And I really love connecting with people. And just, as I say, my goal right now is to help hardworking humans thrive through tough times. I just want to help other people thrive because I've done mine.
How are you thriving in these tough times?
Well, I have moments. Don't get me wrong. It's not all, rainbows and unicorns. We all have our tough times. The pandemic was tough because I launched this full-time speaking business in 2020 and I had a whole full calendar ahead of me. And then the pandemic hit and shut everything down. I spent 2019 writing my first book, and then launched my full-time speaking company in 2020. And then that definitely was a setback. And then I've had my own medical struggles and personal struggles. My mom, who's 90, had a fall. So other things that I've dealt with, I've had to, step away from work and step back in. But right now I'm hitting a good clip and I'm in a good place. I'm healthy and I'm out there working and it feels good.
That's really, really amazing. What are those beings and doings in your life that have opened you up to other things?
Yeah, so it took me a long time to kind of come into my own, decide this is who I am. I've always spent, I'm 57 years old, I won't hide it, I'm not a kid. And I spent a long time, being this elite athlete and doing, gymnastics for so many years and before college and then in college. At LSU, who just won the national championship.
Yes.
And then I spent so many years, as you know, in television and here in Charleston on the air, being that person. I was doing the news every night. I was being that person and cutting ribbons and going to events and being part of our community and stood up a nonprofit, did a lot of work in the community and was very much a part of Charleston for, almost 20 years. How crazy is that? And so I was doing that work and being this news anchor for everyone, for myself too. But I look back and realize I was not fully authentically me. I was trying to be what everybody wanted. And then I jumped into tech, and those years at Benefit Focus, the 12 years there, very much trying really hard to be what they needed me to be in that space, which was very different than what I was before. And so right now, I am just being me. This is just me. I've got a lot of life experience. I've gone through a lot of really tough things and have come out on the other side and turned out okay. I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of them. And I have spent the time doing the research to figure out how somebody gets through some tough stuff, why some people get stuck. Kind of my thing is people always ask me, how come you thrived on the other side of so many challenges? I'm spending time thinking and researching about how people who have big success on the other side of hardship got there. And that's where I got to the word resilience, and that's where my research came from. And now I'm really loving the day-to-day motivational piece that I'm putting out in the world, and then also the people I'm connecting with, either in, meeting rooms of 50 to 60 people or large audiences of 1,000 or 3,000 people. It's a very different vibe for each of them, but my message is similar and I can put that out in the world in a real meaningful way. Yeah.
Whew. Two questions for you. Okay, so, well, let me go to the obvious first. Who is Nina Sossamon pulled on stage?
Took a sip of coffee. On stage, I am still me. Now, when you're on a big stage, you have to kind of perform. So I have to be, and I'm a little more practiced. It's all very timed. I'm professional when I'm on stage. I can't just get out there and chat like I am now. It is all very much orchestrated, and I'm performing this message for folks because I've got a really finite amount of time and I have to hit those points and hit the right sentences and the phrases and make sure they hit home with a particular audience. So on stage, I'm still authentically me now. I did try when I first started this. I did a lot of trying to figure out who I wanted to be on stage. Exactly what you were saying. Like I was trying to be, more energetic, and I was trying to be really practiced and perform because everybody has a shtick or a something, and it wasn't me. So in the last 2 years specifically, I am on that stage and I am just me. I'm very much me, caring a lot about the people in the audience and trying to share with them some really interesting information. It's a mashup of stoicism and science and neuroscience and cognitive behavior therapy, my own special mashup of that. I just want to put it out in the world. So on stage, I'm just me. I'm exactly what you see right here, maybe with a little more makeup and sometime with a false eyelash. Sometimes I put a lash on if I'm on the big screens, but besides that, this is what you get.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Who is your audience?
It's different. I do a lot of work in, so my day-to-day audience, I'm hoping for the people who tune in on Instagram or Facebook, that's just anybody who's hardworking and wants to keep going. So our world is difficult. We have this constant connectivity and this constant change in technology and advancement in technology. It's just, the world's hard now and a lot of people are struggling. So that's my audience in general, all of us who are trying to do hard things. I like to say I'm not Mel Robbins, get off the couch, go do something, high five something. That's not me. I'm talking to, my audience is people who are already out there doing the work, who are hustling, who are going at it every day, and sometimes just get beat down. Like, God, do I gotta, I just raised the bar. I just hit this goal. Now I've set another one. I just made this target and now the target's farther away. People like you who are always out there working, you're my audience there, Quintin. That's my audience, is hardworking humans. And then I do a lot of work, when I'm actually speaking in the corporate space. I really focus on a lot of tech companies because that's my wheelhouse. I understand SaaS companies. I understand, cloud-based software. I understand the release schedules and how that works and what all the people in those companies do. So I do a lot of work in tech. I do a lot of work in HR. I've started to do more in finance. Interesting thing about finance is there's so much pressure, and it's this constant, need to up the ante, up the ante, up the ante. So that space also has a lot of pressure. So I do a lot of work in tech, finance, HR, but I spoke to ChickfilA female operators last year. Like all the women who own Chick-fil-A's came in for a conference, and so it just depends. A women's audience. I love a woman's audience. Don't get me wrong. I do love a room full of smart women, but my audience is anyone who's working hard. Anyone who's working hard and just wants somebody to remind them how friggin' great they are and that they can keep going.
Well, absolutely. And I was just telling you about the new house that we just moved in, our first ever house. Thank God for that in the name of Jesus. But we have a Chick-fil-A right down the street from our
Oh my gosh. That's fantastic.
Yeah, my mom loves the place, and I'm always ordering from Uber Eats.
Yeah.
She loves it though. Good food.
It is. I loved speaking to those women. It was a really cool conference when they all got together, but it was right after, I don't know, something big had happened in the company and they were adjusting a lot of things. They have a lot of pressure because their level of excellence is really high. So a lot of pressure. Can you imagine Chick-fil-A? So yeah, but I love them too. I try not to because they're so full of salt, but
you might.
but I do love a good Chick-fil-A. Yeah.
And even when I go after my run, I'll go over there and get a grilled chicken Caesar salad wrap, and she'll get something else, but it's good food.
Well, yeah, but you also run, and look at you. You take good care of yourself. So, of course, you can eat whatever you want.
Well, I'm going to be 40 in October, so I can't eat anything I want anymore.
I cannot believe it. I remember, for your audience members who don't know how long we've been friends, I remember when Quintin was a teenager and would come into the newsroom and sit and hang out and just want to be part of the newsroom. And I was the anchor at Channel 2 at the time. And he would come across that bridge, the old bridges, remember? and you would want to just hang out in the newsroom, and we would give you anything to do. You were always happy to help with anything with that same smile on your face. So I love to see all that you've done, Quintin.
Those were the great days, and I wish we can reminisce on that and relive it every day, but you can't. But it was just an amazing time back then.
Yeah, it was. It was a very different time in Charleston, a very different time in television. 3 shows a day, not on all day. No Wi, not your phone wasn't.
Right.
The news wasn't in your pocket. You actually had to
Right.
tune in at night and find out what was going on. And then Charleston was much smaller then too. It was a lovely little community, and so many great friends like you that we made back then.
Well, yeah, I missed that Charleston as well. But let me ask you, obviously you have public speaking, you have the keynote speaking, you have the podcast, you have your books, you have your family. How do you keep raising that bar?
I sit and think really hard at times when what is important to me. I prioritize. What do I love? What do I not love right now? What's working for me? What is being what's working? What's actually getting my message out? So right now, I love my podcast. It's so much fun. I was on 2 podcasts yesterday. I'm on other people's podcasting and on yours. So I'm doing a lot of guesting, but I sunset my own. It's a lot of work. This is a lot of work you're doing right here, folks. If you don't know, the editing and the posting and it's a lot. So I kind of put my own podcast on hiatus. It's an example of how I prioritize. My podcast is called This Seriously Sucks, the right podcast when life goes seriously wrong. And I've switched my focus more towards motivation and a broader audience than just people going through really difficult times. So that is a part of my work, obviously, and it's my first book. But I continue to evolve and grow and figure out what the world needs and what I'm good at and where I can make the biggest impact, because I've had my own success. My kids are out being successful. I really want to pour into other people and help other people be successful. So how I do all those things is I prioritize and I decide what is the most needed thing, and I focus on that.
Yes, ma'am. And I just went back last night and even this morning and looked at your newscast from 1997, and you were actually pregnant with one of your children. And I know you were trying to struggle, but you did a great job professionally with that.
Well, that one from 1997, he's in his 4th year at MUSC in in neurology. So I did something right. No, all three of mine. So I have 3, and they all are out, and I'm so proud of all of them. And during those times, and I talk to people about that. During those times, I didn't have time to be as healthy as I am and work out and do all this stuff. I was momming and working. Those were my years where I had to make some money and I had to raise kids, and I wasn't the same person I am right now. I was really working in a different clique and at a different pace. And now I can look and take a step back and go, okay, I like working at a fast pace, but the things that I need to work on are very different, and I can take some more time for myself, which is really hard to do. People always say, well, how do you stay in shape and how do you do that? You really can't. It's harder when you're in the middle of raising kids. But now I have the opportunity to do a lot more and take care of myself. But yeah, that 1997 boy is 4th year MUSC and going in neuro, and I'm crazy proud of him. That's so funny. I'm big and pregnant on TV.
Yeah,
I was oh my gosh, I was so big too. Like my earlobes looked pregnant. Like it was I was massive.
I didn't, I didn't even notice that. I'm sure the viewers didn't either. But you just did a great job, and you persevered no matter what.
Thanks. It was such a fun time, like we said, to be in TV. And I had both my children. I got big as a house. I used to say I was as wide as I was tall, because I'm not very tall. I was as wide as I was tall when I was pregnant, and I happened to be on the air. I can't imagine now with social media and all how people would say ugly things, I'm sure. And I was shielded from that because we didn't have it back then.
Right.
Because I would run into people in the grocery store, or people would actually sit down and write a letter and send it into the TV station and tell me if I looked big, or, or no, don't wear that red jacket anymore. You look huge.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. People always have an opinion, and we all, I have had a lifetime in the spotlight, so I'm used to getting thick-skinned. Yeah, I've become very thick-skinned. I'm real comfortable with who I am, but it took me a long time to get here. It was not something that happened overnight.
If you were to go back in the spotlight, how could you do that and still be comfortable?
I think if I could go back and kind of whisper in 30-year-old Nina's ear, like just go back 25 years or so, like whisper in my younger self's ear, I would have just told myself to be kinder to myself and give myself some grace. I always thought I had to be perfect. And I always felt like I was never enough. And I was always on a diet. I was not sleeping so I could get all this stuff done for my kids. I really felt like I had to be perfect back in those days. And I realize now you don't have to be perfect. People would have still tuned in at night and watched me if I had been, let myself be a few pounds heavier or not spent an extra 10 hours studying every single candidate before an election. I used to do so much homework and so much work, so afraid that I would make one little mistake. And, I think people are very forgiving if you're kind. People are very forgiving of your mistakes, but I was so afraid to make a mistake that I caused myself a lot of worry and probably was a little unkind to myself.
Ah, what mistakes in the past have you forgiven yourself for?
Oh, so many. I still joke that and my kids are 25, 26, 27 right now. So I still joke, I always lost Mother of the Year by January 3rd. I have forgiven myself for not having all the laundry folded and put away. I would spend, 2 hours on the floor doing a puzzle with the kids before I would fold laundry and put it away.
Yeah.
But then I'd go to bed at night feeling like I was a failure because I didn't have everything put away and in its place. I've forgiven myself for those things and for choices that I made. I don't think I always was the best friend through the years. There are people that I wish I'd have kept up with, and I wasn't a great friend. I was busy working and doing other things and could have been a better friend to people. I've forgiven myself for that. And then I also have some things with my work that I've had to forgive myself for. I wish I could go back. I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
My life is my life, and I'm ended up here, and I'm thankful. But I wish I could have leaned into and appreciated the role that I played at Benefit Focus for all those years in a different way. I love the role I played. I love the people I interacted with. But in other ways, I think I could have had more of an impact had I been more confident in my abilities. I knew communications. I knew I was very good at this and at all of the other things that need to, crafting a story and putting out there in the world. And I held back a lot because I didn't know software as much, at the beginning. And I would sit in meetings and not say things when I knew I had answers. So I've forgiven myself for not stepping up to the plate and doing more there. And obviously the company did great and has had huge success. So it's not like I'm forgiving myself for something that failed. I just would have liked to have been a more meaningful part of that journey for some of the people I worked with. So that kind of thing, Forgiveness is one of those things when you get to a certain age. I have so much gratitude. I love this community, the kindness this community showed me for so many years. I've lived here. I moved here in '92.
Ooh, I remember.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this story, Quintin. So
Yes, ma'am.
when I came to Charleston, I was working at WBRZ in Baton Rouge. My first job out of TV, I went to LSU, worked at BRZ, and then I had a short stint working for the governor down there in Louisiana.
Right.
I hated politics. I wanted to get on the other side of it. I wanted to ask the questions, not answer them. So I was looking for a job, and I signed here in Charleston with Mac Thompson back in the day, was the news director. And they wanted me to sign a 3-year contract as a reporter at WCBD. And so I was like, South Carolina? Like, I didn't know anyone in this whole state. I knew nothing about South Carolina. It sounded like this little hillbilly place to me. I'd never really been here. And I went back and forth. They made me the offer, and I went back and forth with Mac, and I got him down to 2 years. Because I'm like, I do not want to go for 3 years in South Carolina.
Huh.
And then I signed, and here I am. That was 1992. And I always think it's so funny. I got him from 3 years to 2 years, and then I stayed for 30.
Right.
I just fell in love with Charleston when I got here. I had no idea what I came into. I came over the bridge. I had a U-Haul Jeep, just me by myself. I had a U-Haul, and I was pulling my Jeep behind it. I had an old beat-up Jeep. And then my black lab was sitting next to me on the front of the U-Haul. And I came from Louisiana, so I came 17 and came up that way. And I came over the old bridges from West Ashley, and there was a banner hanging. I remember it so distinctly. There was a banner hanging from the parking garage there, and it said, "Welcome Musk." And I'm like, "What's Musk?" And it was MUSC. I remember driving in going, I wonder what Musk is. like just a lifetime ago, And this has become this community. This is the longest, obviously, I've ever lived anywhere. I was a Navy brat. So I think I was searching for a home and I found Charleston in 92 and it just has always felt like home. This is certainly, my community.
When we have embraced you tremendously and you've done so much for the community. So we thank you for what you have done.
Thanks, Quintin. You too. You do a lot of great stuff here. It's always fun to run into you at things.
I know, right?
Yeah.
With all that's going on in the world right now, Ms. Nina, how do you craft your message for your audience?
I that's not an easy thing to do. So that's a great question. I look a lot at what people are struggling with. Just last week, I used ChatGPT, and I was like, I'm a motivational speaker. I speak on resilience. Make me a list of the top 10 struggles in the finance industry, the top 10 struggles in the healthcare industry, the top 10 struggles in franchising, in real estate, in construction. I did a big gig for a keynote speech for a construction association recently. And I will use that to pull in, and I do my research on what each industry is struggling with so I can step on a stage and talk to their struggles and make sure that my message is on point and it can help. They don't need me if I can't help. So I'm making sure I'm adding value. But then I could go back and when I have some downtime, so I didn't have any keynotes this week. I've been on a bunch of podcasts, but I didn't have any keynotes this week. I wasn't traveling. And I can look at all those notes that I have from all those different ones and find the commonalities. What's the common thing that everyone is struggling with, like in every industry? And it is this, the pace of technology advancing. We're always getting new technology in every industry, whether it's how you do your, whatever system you're using in your company, the constant changes in that. So that was one that was a common one. And then the other that's common that everyone is dealing with is this constant connectivity, globally constant connectivity. So for some, you never get off the clock because, even when we were benefit focused, there was Hyderabad and Manila and we were working, chasing the sun, we called it. You're always going. As the sun's going around the planet, that's where your people are working. So that constant connectivity is a piece of it. And then for the younger generation and for us and for others, this constant connectivity includes all we're doing on social media. So even when you feel like you're succeeding, like I can feel like I'm having a great day, and then I'll pull up some other speaker who's at a bigger audience and doing a bigger thing and came out with a new book. And I'm like, I super suck. Like I've done nothing, I'm horrible. And the same thing, I'll go and do, work somewhere and feel really good about it. And then I can go and see someone else who's done, more research or more work. And someone will say to me, are you a success? And I'm like, some days I am and some days I'm not. Here I am with, on the US team and then Emmy-Award winning news anchor and then part of the IPO and when we took the company public. So financially, solid. But some days I feel like I'm a failure in the speaker business because I'm not Brene Brown yet. Like I'm not as big as I want to be yet. So am I a failure at this moment or am I just not where I want to be yet? It's all a journey. I have to remind myself there's always going to be somebody in front of me and there's always going to be somebody behind me. And you just figure out where you are in the journey and get happy with you. And so the biggest common, and the rest of the world has the same problem. So the commonalities that I found are we all feel like we're not there yet. And we all have this constant connectivity to show us that we're not there yet, which was not a thing before. And then the technology piece too. So I've been a lot of work on what do you do to be resilient, to adapt in a positive way to all of this change, whether it's one big change in your life or like a divorce or a death or something big, or maybe it's a big change within your company or an industry change or a product failure or something. And the commonality, I've created a framework. It's been really interesting as I evolve my message. I tap into what's happening in our world and I go in that direction. So yeah, it's always a journey and I'm constantly learning and growing and learning from other people.
Absolutely. What do you want your framework to be 5-10 years from now?
Oh, I want it to be a household word. I want people I seriously do. I mean, I always have big aspirations. It probably won't get there. Fine. But I would like it to be something, I call it like instead of software, it's brainware. You have to download into your own brain. But I would like people to like hit a challenge and go, oh, that's how I deal with this. And just know, I call it tips, it's TIPS and my 4 things. But just to know, oh, I have this It's like a GPS in your own head.
Yeah.
I call it the Resilience Route Navigator is the name of it. And it's the 4-part framework, TIPS, timeline, isolate, people, and story. And I break that down for folks. But I want it to be something that people can tap into and know there's always a path forward. I don't want anybody else to have that I can't go forward feeling that I've had in my life. Like, this is it. This is the end of my journey. I got nothing. So I really want people to have that framework to go forward. Well, it won't be a household name, but it is, here's how I think about it.
Yes.
Have you ever been, when we're driving along and all of a sudden, the GPS says recalculating route, there's an obstacle ahead, recalculating route.
Okay.
That's what happens in our lives. We're just going along with our plan and something happens. We get fired, we get divorced, something comes up. Our kids, school calls in the middle of a meeting, just something not part of the plan. This GPS in your brain that I've put together, this framework is as if you had that GPS, because that is in a car. Because in a car, here's what happens. The GPS gods, I don't know who, they know where you are and they know where you're going and they come up with a new path for you to get there. So this framework that I came up with, that's some stoicism, behavioral science, and neuroscience. It knows where you are. It helps you know where you are and where you're going and helps you navigate a new framework to get there. It's the same thing. So you just need to download this GPS thinking into your head so everybody can make sure that they keep moving forward for the little stuff so it doesn't ruin their day, and for the big stuff so they don't get stuck in a really bad chapter of their lives.
Powerful information. I wish I had more time, but I have to go over the true value for my second job at 12. But
I know you do.
But I hope to get you back on Quintin's Close-Up so we can talk more about this in depth soon. But for now, podcaster, author, keynote speaker, public speaker, Emmy-Award winning news anchor and tech exec, Nina Sossamon, thank you for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Always a pleasure, Quintin. All the best to you. Make it a great day. So good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Likewise.